The Constitution Act of Canada, 1982, Article 1. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees, notice that word, guarantees, the rights and freedoms set out in it, subject only to such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. In the Constitution Act of Canada, 1982, Article 1, we see a statement, and it says that there are guaranteed rights and freedoms in this Constitution. Now, they say that these guaranteed rights and freedoms are subject to limitation. So whatever rights and freedoms that we find enumerated in the Constitution Act, or if the Constitution Act leads us out of that act somewhere else, whatever rights and freedoms we find, they're subject to limitations. Now, some would like it to say all the time. That whatever fundamental rights and freedoms that we have, these are subject to limitations at all times, anytime they feel like it. But that's not what it says. It says that it is subject to limitation by prescribed law. By prescribed law. And this limitation, or these limitations, can only be implemented within, not without, but within a democratic society. We know that a democratic society is for that incorporated legal person. When you're part of that society, you as a Canadian citizen has the right to vote. When you're part of that society, as the incorporated legal person, you are granted or you are given certain privileges and benefits which you pay for. But the point being is that they are allowed to limit our rights and freedoms, but only in a democratic society. And the whole point of us expressing our fundamental rights and freedoms is saying that we are not part, we refuse to be part of this democratic society that is in operation. The Constitution Act, it guarantees our natural rights, it guarantees ground law, foundational law. It's an expression of our fundamental rights and freedoms. And again, they use specifically the word guaranteed. A guarantee is a legal obligation that you can hold this state party to, like a contractual guarantee. Now, as an individual, this word breaks out in two ways. It breaks out for the legal person. An individual can be a legal person, or an individual can also be a human being. Well, these guaranteed rights and freedoms that are in the Constitution Act, as a human being, they cannot prescribe. There's no prescription of law that they can use to take them away from you when you stand under that designation, under your natural rights. However, when you stand under the designation of legal person, they can place limitations upon these rights and freedoms. They can place limitations through prescribed law. And prescribed law is a particular operation of law that comes out of the international covenants on civil and political rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural rights. That's where prescribed law is coming from. Point being again, is that your guaranteed rights and freedoms are in the Constitution Act, natural law, fundamental law. As a human being, they can't prescribe them. They can't remove them away from you. However, as that legal person, when they render you that subject, that servant, then they're applying limitations upon these rights and freedoms, and they're applying a prescribed law to try and remove your rights and freedoms. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 5. Nothing in the present covenant may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms recognized herein, or at their limitation to a greater extent than is provided for in the present covenant. What we are seeing here is that no state party can limit the rights and freedoms that are in the covenants to a greater extent than indicated in the covenants themselves. So there you're looking at the principal operation of justice that they are using. The State Party Canada are trying to remove your rights and freedoms by applying operations of law that are found in the covenants. Now, these operations of law that are found in the covenants, they control the way Canada can limit your rights and freedoms, but they apply only upon, again, that legal person. That legal person who is part of that democratic society. That is the only individual, that is the only designation where the state party has the right to apply a limitation upon, a medium of control upon that legal person in the democratic society. When you look and study the international covenants, you will never find that the international covenants grant the state party the power to limit our rights and freedoms as a human being. They only grant them the power to limit our rights and freedoms through that democratic society, through that designation. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 2. Each state party to the present covenant undertakes to respect and to ensure to all individuals, now notice that they use the term individuals, within its territory and subject to its jurisdiction, the rights recognized in the present covenant, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. So we are seeing here that the state party is under obligation and has to undertake to respect and to ensure to all individuals the rights recognized in the international covenants. And Canada is a state party to this covenant. Again, in the international covenant, we're looking at talking about guaranteeing our rights and freedoms, and it states that the state party must respect and ensure to all. Now notice the designation they bring forth here. Notice what they're bringing forth: to all individuals. They didn't use the word person, they didn't use the word citizen, they used the word individual. Why? Because they're opening it up again. An individual can be a human being, or an individual can be that legal person. And the state party must respect and ensure to all individuals, whether it be the human being, through their natural rights, natural law, foundational law, or to the legal person, through that prescribed law. The rights and freedoms that are guaranteed in the covenants themselves. But what they're doing is that, again, they're using the word individual, they're qualifying it, it breaks down into human being. A human being, no prescribed law can be applied upon it. He has his natural rights, fundamental human rights and freedoms that cannot be taken away. However, through prescription of law, those rights and freedoms now are limited upon the legal person. But it doesn't change the fact that the state party still has to respect and ensure all of our rights as individuals when we take the designation of human being. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article number 26. It states all persons are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection of the law. In this respect, the law shall prohibit any discrimination and guarantee to all persons equal and effective protection against discrimination on any ground such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 2.2, where not already provided for by existing legislative or other measures, each state party to the present covenant undertakes to take the necessary steps in accordance with its constitutional process and with the provisions of the present covenant, to adopt such legislative or other measures as may be necessary to give effect to the rights recognized in the present covenant. The state party, through its constitutional process, its constitutional laws, and other measures. They're very clear when they say that. They say in the constitutional process or other measures. Now, these other measures are administrative processes that you will and are getting familiar with. And other measures, they have to provide the expression, the exercise of the rights and freedoms that are found in the covenants. So there again we see the legal obligation. The rights and freedoms that are expressed in the international covenants, they must come out, they must be brought forth in the constitutional process of the state party or by other measures provided for by the state party. That legal binding obligation. And we know that there are in the covenants an individual, the human being, that legal person. The human being, the individual, cannot be limited, cannot be prescribed. However, the legal person can be prescribed. So, the rights and freedoms that we find in the enactments, in the regulations that apply to the legal person, the Canadian citizens, are those rights and freedoms that are coming out of the covenants after there has been prescribed law applied upon those rights and freedoms. The International Covenant, Article 3. The state parties to the present covenant undertake to ensure the equal right of men and women to the enjoyment, notice that, the enjoyment of all civil and political rights set forth in the present covenant. The International Covenant, Article 1. All peoples, notice that, peoples, have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. People pursue. Human beings enjoy. Looking into the International Covenant, both of them, we find that men and women, the plural being human beings, they have the enjoyment. The enjoyment, that is a designation, that's the term, that's the word that is given, that is used. The enjoyment of all of these rights and freedoms that are enumerated in the covenant. However, the people, that referring to the legal person, that Canadian citizen, they must pursue. That's the term they use. They must pursue after their rights and freedoms. Well, if I have a pen or a marker, that means I have it. I can enjoy it, I can use it. I don't have to pursue to go and get a marker. If I don't have a marker, I must pursue, I must go and get that marker. And this is what we are seeing. After the prescribed law that is applied upon that Canadian citizen, upon that legal person, they are stripped of the fundamental human rights and freedoms that they have as a human being. And no longer can they express or can they enjoy those fundamental rights and freedoms. They, through this commercial system, through the enactments and regulations, the qualifying factors that have been set up, they must pursue now after their rights and freedoms. And it's a big mess. But here again is what's going on. Our natural law, fundamental laws, are there for us. They protect us. They are our guarantee against the state party, not to put us into slavery, not to put us into servitude. However, the state party desires that we operate from this perspective, that they place us in a situation of pursuing after something that we already naturally have, our fundamental rights and freedoms.